My mom always believed she knew every corner of my life. She believed she could read my face, the way she read old books she kept in her room, slowly, carefully, with full trust that nothing was hidden between the lines. I grew up inside that belief. I spoke less when I felt confused, smiled more when I felt unsure, and learned early how silence could look like peace. But there was one truth in my life that did not fit inside her understanding. It was not a person. It was not a secret love or a wrong act. It was a choice I had made quietly, a direction I was walking toward without asking for permission. You were that choice. You were the future I was building in my head, the path I was following even when my hands were shaking. You were not something bad, but you were something different, and difference can feel dangerous when fear is louder than trust. The day everything broke open started like any other day. The house smelled like tea and warm bread. My mom was cleaning, moving things that did not need to be moved, doing what she always did when her thoughts were restless. I was sitting nearby, trying to act normal, trying to keep my voice steady when she asked simple questions. I knew something was coming, but I did not know when or how. I had left pieces of my truth, scattered without realizing it. A notebook, a few words overheard, a look on my face that stayed too long. When she finally found what made all the pieces connect in her mind, it was not understanding that reached her first. It was fear, the kind that makes a parent feel like the ground is falling away under their feet. She looked at me like I had become a stranger in 1 second. Her eyes were wide, not angry at first, just shocked, as if the world she trusted had suddenly changed shape. She asked questions quickly, not waiting for answers, her voice rising and falling like she was trying to hold on to control. I tried to explain, but my words came out slow and weak. I did not have strong language for what you meant to me. How do you explain a quiet decision that grew over years? How do you explain a truth that feels right inside but looks wrong from the outside? I kept saying, you are not what you think, but she was not hearing me. She was hearing her own fear speak louder than my voice. Then it happened. The slap came suddenly, like a door slammed by the wind. It was not planned. It was not heavy. It was a reflex born from shock, not from hate. The sound was sharper than the pain. For a second the room felt empty of air. She froze right after, her hand still shaking, her face changing as if she realized too late what she had done. That moment did not last long, but it stayed with me, not because of the act, but because of what it meant. It meant she was terrified. It meant she thought she was losing me. It meant love had turned into panic in a single breath. After that, everything went quiet. No more shouting. No more questions. Just silence hanging between us, heavy and uncomfortable. I could see regret already forming in her eyes, even though she did not say sorry. Parents do not always know how to apologize with words. Sometimes their guilt lives in their posture, in the way they avoid your eyes, in the way their voice becomes softer than usual. I touched my face, more to ground myself than to check for pain. I was not angry. I was sad, sad that you had been misunderstood so deeply, sad that my truth had scared the person who loved me the most. She sat down slowly, like her body had suddenly aged. She asked me again, but this time her voice was lower. Why? That one word carried everything. Why did you choose this path? Why didn't you tell me earlier? Why does it feel like I don't know you anymore? I wanted to answer all of it, but my heart felt too full. I told her that you were not something dangerous, that you were not a rebellion or a rejection of her love. You were simply the way I learned to breathe on my own. I told her I did not hide you because I was ashamed. I hid you because I was afraid she would see you through fear instead of trust. and that fear had just proven itself real. She listened, but listening does not always mean understanding. Her mind was still fighting images she had created in her head. Worst-case stories, broken futures. Pain she imagined I would face because of you. To her, love meant protection, and protection meant control. She believed if she could stop you, she could save me. I believed if I could follow you, I could finally be honest with myself. We were standing on opposite sides of the same love, both scared, both hurting, both wanting the same thing in different ways. Later that night, I stayed awake while the house slept. Every small sound felt loud. I replayed the moment again and again, not the slap, but the look on her face right after. The look of regret mixed with confusion. I asked myself if I had been selfish, if choosing you without explaining earlier had been unfair. I also asked myself if living without you would slowly erase who I was becoming. There were no clear answers, only heavy thoughts. Family love is not simple. It is layered with expectations, history, sacrifice, and fear of loss. When one layer cracks, all the others shake. In the days that followed, things were different. Not broken, but fragile. She did small things for me, like cooking my favorite food, asking if I was tired, reminding me to rest. These were her quiet apologies. I responded by helping more around the house, by being present, by showing her I was still her child. But we avoided talking about you. You sat between us like an unspoken name. Sometimes I wanted to bring you up, to explain more clearly, to fix the misunderstanding. Other times I stayed silent, afraid of opening the wound again. I began to understand that her reaction did not come from cruelty. It came from stories she had been taught, from warnings passed down like rules, from a world that taught parents to fear what they could not control. She had imagined a life for me, long before I could imagine one for myself. When you appeared, you shattered that picture. That kind of loss can feel personal, even when it is not meant to be. I started to forgive her quietly, not because what happened was right, but because holding anger felt heavier than letting it go. At the same time, I learned something about myself. I learned that silence can protect for a while, but it can also explode if held too long. I learned that honesty spoken late can sound like betrayal to those who were not prepared. I learned that love does not always show itself gently. Sometimes it arrives clumsy, loud, and full of mistakes. None of these lessons came easy. They sat with me, uncomfortable and real. One evening, she finally spoke again. Not about the slap, not directly about you. She said she was scared of losing me to a life she could not follow. She said she did not know how to protect me in a world she did not understand. Her voice broke when she said that. In that moment, I saw her not just as my mother, but as a human being afraid of being left behind. I told her I was not going anywhere, that even with you in my life, I was still her child. I did not promise to give you up. I did not promise to change. I simply promised to stay connected. That was not a perfect ending. There was no full agreement, no sudden acceptance, just a small bridge built out of honesty and patience. You remained misunderstood, but no longer completely rejected. She remained fearful, but no longer blind with shock. We were learning, slowly, how to exist in the same space with different truths. Even now, I do not know how this story will finish. Maybe one day she will understand you clearly. Maybe she never will. Maybe I will change, or maybe you will change shape as life moves forward. What I know is that one moment of misunderstanding revealed how deeply love and fear can collide, how quickly trust can shake, how regret can follow instantly after harm. That slap was not the center of the story. The silence after it was. The love behind it was. The questions it left unanswered still echo quietly in my mind. I live with those questions now. I carry both my choice and my family with care, trying not to drop either. Some days feel heavier than others. Some days feel hopeful. I do not pretend everything is healed. I only know that truth once revealed cannot be unseen, and love once tested must decide whether it will grow or close itself off. I am still waiting, still walking, still holding space for understanding to arrive in its own time. Time did not rush after that moment. It moved slowly, like it was careful not to disturb what was still fragile between us. Every day felt like walking on a thin line, where one wrong word could bring everything back to that first shock. I noticed how my mom watched me more closely now, not in a controlling way, but in a worried way, like she was trying to recognize a version of me she thought she had lost. I also noticed how I watched myself, questioning every choice, every silence, every step forward. You stayed with me, not loudly, not proudly, but quietly, like a truth waiting to be fully understood. I carried you inside me while trying to keep the peace outside, and that balance was harder than I expected. Some mornings I would wake up with a heavy chest, already tired before the day began. I would sit on my bed and think about how easily things could have been different if I had spoken earlier, if I had trusted her with my truth before fear filled the space. But regret is a strange thing. It teaches you, but it also traps you if you let it. I learned to let the regret speak, then let it go. I could not change the past moment, but I could change how I moved forward from it. I reminded myself again and again that you were not wrong, you were not harmful, you were simply unfamiliar to her, and unfamiliar things often wear the mask of danger in a parent's mind. My mom too was changing in small ways. She no longer asked direct questions, but she listened more carefully when I spoke about life in general. Sometimes she would ask about my plans, my thoughts, my worries. Not about you directly, but around you, like she was slowly circling something she was afraid to touch. Her voice carried concern but also curiosity. That curiosity mattered. It told me that fear had not completely closed her heart. It told me that love was still working quietly underneath everything. One afternoon, we sat together without talking much. The house was calm. The outside noise felt far away. She suddenly said that when she was young, her own parents had misunderstood her once too. She did not go into detail. She did not compare pain. She simply said they had been scared of choices they did not understand. That small confession changed something inside me. It reminded me that fear repeats itself through generations, passed down like an old warning that no one questions. It also reminded me that understanding can begin with shared silence, not arguments. I wanted to tell her everything then. I wanted to explain you clearly, step by step, without emotion clouding the meaning. But I stopped myself. I realized that understanding does not always arrive through explanations. Sometimes it arrives through time, through watching someone live honestly without falling apart.